started on the
I have a very, very special guest today. He goes by the name of Joey from Krypton To Alderaan YouTube channel and podcast. If I could bring him in. Welcome, Joey. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me. Very special guest. I don't know. We'll wait to see towards the end. But can I say I love your intro? That is so fun and just so, just taken through the whole thing. It's so much fun.
Thank you. You know, actually, the intro was inspired by Pee-wee's Playhouse. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But just the way he kind of walks in and shows you the house, that's kind of what I want to do with kind of like the Nerd Room studio. So yeah, that's the whole thing, with, creating content, you want to have fun with it. You want it to be, different in your own ways, but then you also stay in your own lane. And that, I feel like that's how the best content is created. Something you 100%. Like ultimately. But yeah, we have a very interesting and open conversation today. It's not really more of my typical episode on the podcast here, where it's kind of laid out in faction, like here, this is what we're talking about. But this one could really stretch all over the place: negative, positive, what we like, what we don't like, and what other people don't like. So that's basically the main premise today. But just to start it off, is there anything Star Wars collector wise or anything you wanted to show off for the episode? Usually we do a show and tell segment where it's kind of like we're in kindergarten again. We're bringing an item, we show it off, give the story, and continue.
Sure. Yeah, I brought something over to my side here. I also want to say that I really enjoyed the idea of this particular thing at this particular time, because I've been so bummed about Star Wars the past few weeks that it was nice that you were like, pick something out and show it, and it like a little bit of joy in the space, which is exactly what I needed. So what I grabbed is my Jedi Temple mask, Jedi Temple Guard
awesome.
Mask, wearable.
Let's go.
Yeah, this is kind of my little pride and joy, because it was 3D printed, and so I then had to like sand it down and fill the holes and paint it and all that stuff and then seal it. So yeah, wow. This is my favorite thing that I have, and thank you for making me pull it out and remember something that I really love about Star Wars.
Man, hell yeah, that's legit. I love that. So what did you print it yourself?
No, my partner's brother printed it for me, actually, as a Christmas present. So it was very nice of him. And so, yeah, I got it. I think I tried to buy one from Disney, and they were so like, I think there was a Galaxy's Edge thing at one point, and it was sold out. And I was like, man, I really want this. So yeah, super cool though.
Hell yeah. And see, like, that's something too. Like, you see behind me, I have something called the Sickness within the Star Wars community, where there's Legos, Funkos, some Power of the Galaxies above me, all of that. But a lot of that, it stems down to, there's always stories behind everything you pick up, even the pop filter you're speaking into, like you got that somewhere, and there, there's a story with it, just anything so simple in that faction. But I felt like today for my show and tell item, it could only be right. And that's going to be this Chimera Funko Pop right here. I actually just picked this up last week.
That's so great.
But yeah, lighting is terrible. Not red light. But yeah, just
very red lighting to really get that effect of when he's chasing May through the forest on Kofar.
Yeah.
What a cool scene in general. Also, man, I think that's, that's a good way to lead into the thing that I'm super, you're making me remember that I'm also super excited about the Acolyte, I think is what I'm trying to say here.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, if you we can go ahead and just kick it off straight with talking about maybe some personal comments that you have seen through your channel. I know that you guys do the podcast as well. And I've actually seen a couple of your videos, you know, where it's reviewing like episodes, talking about what you guys have seen, and basically kind of putting your thoughts together into how you saw the episode, like what you took from it.
Sure.
And I've definitely seen that some of them have some really good traction, you know, a couple thousand views. So I mean, obviously what you're saying is getting to, you know, TV screens, phone screens, and some people are, you know, getting into what you're saying. But like, what are some of the things that you've seen from the Acolyte itself in your videos that you've made?
Yeah, you know, that's kind of a tough question to answer because yes, we started to get a lot of traction on Krypton To Alderaan this year between Bad Batch and the Acolyte. That's when things really started to ramp up for us and we hit a stride. And so going into the Acolyte, we all knew going into the premiere of the show that it was already getting bombed by people out there
Hmm.
elsewhere, right? It was already like at 13% on Rotten Tomatoes before the show premiered and all this stuff. So I was like gearing up um to like have that happen to creators as well. And something that I really wanted to make clear and to focus on was that we were not going to be addressing on Krypton To Alderaan, we were not going to be addressing what other people were saying about the show. We were not going to be addressing the like you know review bombing and the negative things people were saying, and I didn't want to go line by line like combating what people were saying in that sense and like defending the art. I wanted to talk about, well, I thought it was very important to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like we always do. We say on Krypton To Alderaan, we analyze the episodes. So we have very specific things that make Star Wars special to us. And we filter the content, we filter, stuff like the Acolyte through that and
Right.
provide evidence as to why it like meets or doesn't meet those things. And if it doesn't for somebody else, that's great. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you do like it, great. And I'm right there with you.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's the way we try to do things. And I didn't want to get bogged down defending us, with people coming to our comments or defending the show, so to speak. I just wanted to provide people with what the show was about and why I liked it based on what I like about Star Wars. I wanted to do all the other stuff at the very end after I felt that in order to respect the show, that's the way we had to talk about it. Respect the show, respect the actors, and respect the people who were creating the show, and respect their art. That's the way I wanted to go at it. As far as the comments we got, like you're saying, we're getting some more views, we're getting some more traction, and that's really great to see. We did though get a lot of negative comments. I can't tell you how many comments I've actually deleted from our channel's comment section just because they're like horrible and say horrible things that are truly awful, and don't create a safe space for people, and two, have absolutely nothing to do with the show itself.
Yeah. Right.
So the amount of things that we have gotten is just like, I mean, and I know people have been, this has been happening to people for a long time in this fandom. So it was my first interaction with it in this, this much of it. So yeah, it was really hard to see. I mean, I won't even say what people were saying, but most of the time you could tell where they were like coming from saying this stuff. There was stuff that just was blatantly not true, that who even knows where some of this information was coming from. But some really like terrible things, and like very like, you're not a real Star Wars fan if type stuff. So yeah, I mean, that was just what was going on the whole time. And then of course when we reached the end, it just like peaked with the finale, and then 3 weeks later announcing that there wasn't going to be a season 2. So
Right.
yeah, just kind of like dealing with all the hate on even like our small channels in the background
Right.
somewhere. So
Yeah, that's something I find that's so weird is the fact that you have to go through your own comment section and take away what people have said, and it's
yeah,
always it anyone can say anything, but at the end of the day, it's always the, you know, Mr. Krabs spatula at Bob's cabinet, just the most random names. And it's not
yeah,
like,
yeah,
your John Williams or your, Bobby Jackson, it's nothing like that. It's always these, they're hiding behind a screen and just letting I don't even wouldn't really even say feelings out. They're just, basically saying things that others have said. And most of the times it doesn't even make sense. And I know you've
yeah,
probably encountered that as well. But it's like, you know, the video I just made, it's talking about, how OSHA and May's dynamic could potentially give us some insight on how the chosen one was created. And we know that it's not, it wasn't the same exact step. It was kind of more of a head start, maybe, and if we were to get a season 2, maybe we could see how Plagueis was able to manipulate the force. And and that is taken away from the people who enjoyed the Acolyte. Is now it's this big what if. Maybe we have to go read a book or a comic now. So I don't know. I just think it's weird how, like I said, those people just hide behind a screen and want to, say dumb things that don't even make sense. Like if you're gonna roast me or
right.
something, make it make sense at least.
Yeah.
I, I've been roasted before in person, in comment sections, and there was a huge point I was actually going to bring up in this recording today with you is that every single day I get on social media, I see a video where someone's talking down about Star Wars or even just some of my favorite sports teams, and I'll type out a whole thing in the comment section. But right before I press send, I end up deleting it. Because
Yeah,
it's like I don't want to, I don't want it to be 8 hours from now after I forgot I, sent this comment. Now I'm getting a reaction, and and that's kind of like the mirror point. It's like I had to check myself to be like, what, this is. I don't like it when people do this. I don't like it when people, leave comments on my videos, stuff that I've, at least worked a little hard for. Sometimes the editing process can be the hardest part, or even just recording and saying what you actually feel. That sometimes that's the hardest thing. But it's weird how, I want to comment, but I'm just like, you know what? I'm just not even gonna entertain this today. Whatever.
yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah.
let this go.
Sometimes it's okay to write something out and never hit send, right? It's very therapeutic. That's a very good way to deal with some of these things. I also think that there are ways, what we do, again, going back to kind of like our brand identity as Krypton to Alderaan, is we discuss things in terms of like generous takes. We have generous takes, and you're saying like, yes, it is really hard to make a thing. It is like it takes an incredible amount of work to make this content. Like it is a lot of work, and it's also like our babies, right? Like
Right.
I really love making my podcast. I love everything about it. I love like talking about Star Wars. I love having the channel. I love the opportunity to discuss this much, and I love get the engagement from other people out on the internet, seeing,
Oh yeah.
watching the stuff, hitting the like button, even commenting, unless it's one of these terrible comments. But there's a way to do all of this, like without saying you're wrong. I'm a real fan. If you like this, if you like X thing, you're not a real fan. Like that's just something we gotta put a stop to somehow, because it's
That
just
is the
like
worst.
that is not what fandom is. It is not and cannot be what fandom is about. And in terms of like our things being, taking a lot of our time and a lot of our like emotional energy and a lot of hard work to make, like think about that in terms of the Acolyte. Okay, maybe they had a bunch of money and Lucasfilm Studios, but this is like Leslie Headland's story that she wanted to tell as a pretty big Star Wars fan and Legends fan. And then most of the cast coming out and saying, hey, I love Star Wars. This is a dream come true. They do all the hard work and like the choreography. It's a ton of work and energy to make a thing. That's my point. And I think like there should be, or I guess I shouldn't say there should be. I have a baseline respect for that. And so then that influences like how I'm going to talk about the thing. Like, I
Right.
didn't necessarily like Mandalorian season 3 all that much personally. It didn't hit for me, but I understand that it is art and someone created it and a lot of hard work went into it. And I think that that, you know, deserves my respect to a certain extent. So I'm not going to go out and be like, this sucked, you know, just a blanket statement that I'm saying as true. And you know, I love one of the things I love most about Star Wars in general is that someone else loves Star Wars. I love talking with other people who love Star Wars. I love if I can say like, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of The Rise of Skywalker, and the other person says, well, I loved it, and here's why. I'm like, this is what it's about. This is fandom. This is
Yeah.
like, this is how you fandom. And so I think that you know, there's got to be a way to just like exist in this space for mutual love of the same thing and have respect for the that it's being created by people who want to create it and it's their story to, it was that was I'm rambling now because I'm very passionate about this, but that's what Visions was about, and that's why I love Visions so much, is because Lucasfilm just went out to studios and was like, hey, you want to make a Star Wars? And the people were like, are you kidding? Of
Yeah.
course. And so to
Absolutely.
see that with the Acolyte, it was incredible. And then on top of that, I also really enjoyed the show and everything it did for Star Wars. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. You know, that's the thing too, especially when you talk about a specific subject within Star Wars, if it feel you can always go on. You know, there's so much, even just within Star Wars, there's so much story, there's so much different sides, there's so much different things to like and what calls to you and stuff, you know, and I that's just another thing too where I just find it really, really funny how people are like, oh, what is your top three Star Wars? And if it doesn't pertain episode 4, 5, and 3, like you're
Yeah.
not a Star Wars fan. If you
Right.
have The Last Jedi in your top 10, you're not a Star Wars fan. You know, they ruined, you know, Mark Hamill. They ruined, you know, George's vision. They ruined my childhood. It's like, man, those are
Ooh.
the three laziest takes I have ever
Yeah.
heard. And every single time you go online, and the
Yep.
online is a pit, dude. It's the worst thing that has ever been created, but just also the best thing. Because if we didn't have, you know, the internet, you and I couldn't be talking. I couldn't Google the answer to something, you know, anything like that. But it's just
100%.
we use
Yeah.
it so wrong at times. You know, social media, it's just so weird how everyone thinks like how opinions are varied. It's like, dude, I don't care what you know Joe said about The Last Jedi. I want to know what you think. I didn't ask him what he thinks about it. I want to know what you think, because
Yeah.
even my little brothers, like they were born around 2010 2011, so you know they're really young when the sequels come out, and I was born in 97, so I'm a huge prequels guy. And
Hmm.
you know, and it's weird because I know older people who hate the prequels but love the original trilogy, and the sequels call to them. You know, some of the original trilogy characters are in it, and it's something they can relate with. You know, they grew up, and then Han Solo is the same age, you know, as them now. So I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense. But I'm
Sure.
not gonna knock them for not liking, you know, how Anakin was as a kid or how Obi-Wan was as a Padawan. You know, it's just weird. It's so weird to me.
Yeah. But perhaps the importance of seeing yourself in the characters on screen, which some of those like it's what people wanted from the Acolyte, and people, you know, the Acolyte was the most diverse Star Wars cast, right? The
Yeah.
opportunity to see for so many people to see themselves on screen as a Jedi or on screen in Star Wars, which is very special, as special as it is for like the people who see themselves as Harrison Ford and they're aging together.
Right.
It's, that's the connection, and the fact that the connection works there and not, in this other thing is mind-boggling to me, that there's not like that, uh that they're not able to see that that's all people want in this thing, right? They just want to see themselves in the characters, and they're excited when they get to see themselves in the characters. But so many people have a problem with that. And yeah, I like it. It's crazy to me that people cannot reflect in that way. It's also, I feel the same way about the prequels and what's happening now in Star Wars in general, but also with the Acolyte, in that when the prequels came out, everyone hated them. I'm
Hmm.
being like, that's certainly hyperbolic, but people hated the prequels so much that the people made a documentary about hating the prequels, which I think started a lot of this bad stuff in the fandom. The People versus George Lucas was like a hard line in maybe the quote unquote toxic side of the fandom. And now people love the prequels. You born in 97, you grew up with the prequels, you love the prequels. So many people reflect back and say, hey, I love that. And the idea that they cannot see that might also happen with the sequels, with the Acolyte, with the stuff that's coming out now is, I had a comment in one of my on one of our videos that said, like, the prequels, people's opinions changed on the prequels. I don't see that happening with the Acolyte. It's like, how could you make that statement? Like, I'm sure no one in 2005 uh,
Right.
thought that the prequels would ever age well, right?
Hmm.
It's just like there's no like reflection. Everything is just like a quick snap judgment. No one has the time. No one takes the time, and we're not given the time to like really absorb a thing or go back and rewatch a thing. We're watching the episodes and then we're immediately making a judgment and going on the internet and talking about it. And so I think it's really hard to get people to really wallow in it, to make those, to formulate those opinions without just coming online and watching people like us talk about the show. I think people have always put certain people up on pedestals, and for the most part those people are in front of cameras with microphones. And so when that happens in this day, in the age of like the creator economy, those anyone who is in front of a microphone at their computer, there's some people that take their opinions as fact. And I think that that's where a lot of this, that's what I'm seeing. This is what I'm personally uh think, based on what I'm seeing. And
Right.
so then it gets hard to not say, this wasn't good, or this sucked, or even rewriting, this is what I would have done. It's super easy to rewrite a thing, but I think it's super important to say, this is why I did not like it. For me,
Right.
like, the I versus the like blanket statement of uh this was bad or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing too, and that's actually going to go into another topic, is how we see things, but more in particularly how others see things and what they go through. But that's kind of something I just wanted to add too, is it's like, you'd think with all the hate that the sequels have gotten, which is crazy.
Hmm.
Next year, 10 years ago was when The Force Awakens came out. And that's just nuts to even remotely
Yeah.
try to even think about. Like, that's crazy. I remember me and my dad when I was younger, like probably like 2007-ish, talking about like we would get on Wikipedia, and like back in those days, you could get like forums and like links to go to like other sites and actually read like what people have been writing for like scripts for the sequels, like 7, 8, and 9. And I remember
Yep.
just a quick one to talk about was like episode 7. It was like Mace Windu survived. Here comes an older Boba Fett and avenges his father. Like he kills
Oh
Mace
wow, yeah.
Windu to get back. Like, how cool is that? And like,
Yeah.
we didn't get that, obviously. Cool, whatever. Like, that's fine. But like, my dad was like, you'll either be a senior in high school or you'll be going into your freshman year of college when the sequels comes out, and that was when they were announced, and it was just like, no way, like that's so far away, and like just to think like that happened 10 years ago, just
Yeah.
weird. But and but what I was trying to say was, adding to that is like, if the sequels were so bad, I find it really weird how even in the Mandalorian and everything that's going on in the Mandoverse is slowly creeping into the First Order, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lazy take for people to say, well, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are trying to, make things up for J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson's mistake. That just makes Disney look better, and it bails Kathleen Kennedy out, which it's like, dude, how lazy. Like
Yeah.
that, I could have thought about that, never, because that's just,
Yeah.
it's boring, like where does that get you? That's just
Yeah.
and that's the whole thing, is the opinions. That's not your
Yeah.
opinion, dude. That's not.
No.
I'm sorry, but like,
Also, yeah, go
Ray
ahead,
is
sorry.
getting no, you're good. Ray is getting her own, movie now. Like, if the sequels were that bad, why are they giving her a movie? That makes zero sense.
Yeah. Yeah, this stuff is continuing to get made, and that's the one like line of evidence that I have for hope that we'll get a season 2 of The Acolyte, in that like all anyone ever does is complain about the sequels, but we're getting the
We're
sequel
getting
to that.
more. Yeah.
So, I think there was a perfect storm here around The Acolyte, that a lot of things might have influenced this decision to not renew it. But it is very much like, going back to what you said about like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, like bailing out, quote unquote, bailing out the sequel trilogy. Then that line of thinking, my knee jerk reaction to that is, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
who
cares?
cares? Even if that is the reason, which like there's, I find it hard to believe that they would like stake the new content on the old content that like isn't about to be a box office thing and make the money. Like, they would be focusing on the new stuff because that's what's going to make them money. And even the Bad Batch was gearing up towards the sequel trilogy, like leading us
Yeah.
into sequel trilogy stuff, which had like no stake in the game as far as
Yeah,
like
at all.
the sequels better or whatever. If there's an audio version only of this podcast, I am using quotes, finger quotes sometimes for stuff that I don't really believe, because I do like the sequels. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, they're creating new stuff. They're creating new technology to make this stuff, and they're creating good Star Wars. I really liked a lot of the stuff that they've done. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the third season of Mandalorian, but there's some gems in there for sure. It's not like I'm not going to watch the next one. And so they're making really good stuff, in my opinion. So if it happens to elevate the sequel trilogy, great, because that's what all other Star Wars has done. That's what another section of your property is supposed to do, really, when it's in the same like time frame. If that's what you wanted to do, I don't know. Like, it should all elevate each other. It's telling one cohesive story. I like the prequels. I would like the prequels a lot less if not for the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars came and elevated the prequels to a very high standing, and one would not work as well without the other for me. So, yes, this stuff is continuously coming and elevating the stuff that came before. And I think that's great. I don't think that that's a reason to like, we should want that. My point is like, all fans who love this thing, is we should all want the content to elevate the existing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all good points to throw at it, because another thing that I think is kind of weird, that kind of falls in the same line, is a lot of people want Disney to create Star Wars that we want. But at the same time, I feel like if there was like a consensus or something, to where they're like, hey, fill this out, let's send it in, because like there was like a third party to Disney, I believe, and it was just kind of like, what would you like? And you could put 3 options, and I just for sure remembered that I put, I want Chimera and Plagueis. If not, if we're not getting a
Yeah.
Acolyte season 2, like, you know, throw those two out there. And also, I want a Jabba the Hutt gangster movie. You know, like I want, or not even a movie, just even like a 30-minute animation, you know, episode or something, because I just think that would be cool. That's just my personal thing. And of course, Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. I'm a huge Quinlan Vos fan, and I just want him to finally get more action, just because he's always name dropped, or he gets a, you know, 15 minutes screen time in the Clone Wars. You know, like I need more of Quinlan Vos, and especially with, you know, bringing up Bad Batch season 3 again. You know, they didn't have to bring back Asajj Ventress, but they did for a reason, and they didn't have to, you know, make everything tie in with what Palpatine wanted for the entire operation that could help him be immortal, and it all makes sense. But
yeah,
one thing before we get into the Acolyte, I know 30 minutes in, we got to get talking on some good Acolyte stuff. But
yeah.
what have you thought? I don't know if you've seen on TikTok, Instagram, or anything like that, that people are saying that the original ending for The Rise of Skywalker was Anakin coming back and taking out Palpatine again. So what do you think of that? Because me personally, I was like, well, he's already done that before. He already threw him down the reactor shaft. Why would
Yeah.
Anakin come back again? You know, and
Yeah.
everyone's mad because Palpatine's back again, but at the same time, he completely took out the Jedi. So, and you know, why would he not come back? You know, it makes
Right.
sense. But what do
Yeah.
you think about that?
I think that that's something we've been talking a lot about on Krypton to Alderaan as well, like filling in that somehow, which is what this other, like the Bad Batch is doing, the Mandalorian is doing, filling out the somehow Palpatine return so we can stop with that stupid meme. I also think that there would have been, if we go back to whatever year Rise of Skywalker came out, what I don't even know. Take yourselves back, see that ending, see Anakin come out and defeat Palpatine, and then leave the theater, and tell me that you and I wouldn't be sitting here saying, "Oh, Rey should have been the one to take out Palpatine." Like, that's always the way that it's going to work. It's always
Yep.
going to be people saying, "This is the way it should have happened," instead of just like, you know, don't accept it if you don't like it, but don't like
Yeah.
just don't say it definitely would have been better if this thing happened instead. It's super easy to play Monday morning quarterback and rewrite a thing. And no one is ever going to, you're never going to be able to make a thing that everyone likes. If you don't
Right.
like the sequels and you don't like the Acolyte, listen, we're with the age of the internet. Another positive thing about the internet, fan fiction all over the place. I love fan fiction. Like, please go write your own fan fiction. And all Star Wars is these days is fan fiction that like gets adapted into onto TV, right? Like Leslie
Sure.
Headland, everything is fan fiction. Leslie Headland had fan fiction that Lucasfilm was like, yeah, we'll do that, right? And if this is the way I've been thinking about it for weeks now, if someone else, if any of these people who are like yelling and saying horrible things in my comment section and like horrible things about Leslie Headland and the cast and crew, if they wrote the thing and made the show, if one of those people wrote the thing and made the show, Leslie Headland would be sitting at home, not enjoying what you made, saying, "Oh, they should have done it this way." You know what I mean? Like the entitlement attached to this stuff of thinking that you would have been able to do it better is astounding to me. I guess that's it. Because maybe you could, and if you think so, try, but also you should not have any like reservations about the fact that someone else will be sitting at home watching your thing saying this could have been better. I could have done this better. And that's part of my thing with like respecting art. We maybe need to like move past that language and talk about things more generously in general, but it's just an incredible level of entitlement to be like, oh, if only I had made the Acolyte, if only I had made the Rise of Skywalker, it would be this great, perfect thing because I
Yep.
understand the property better than anyone else in the world.
Yeah, it's so weird. That's how I feel too, is I want to get like all of these people in these comment sections or, any threads or anything. It's like, okay, let me get your name and an email. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to strive to get you to Disney. That way you can get in with whatever past you have in creating film or dialogue or screenplay. And I'm going to
Right.
see if they can get you in. And I will see if I can get a lot of people on my back to help me push you to get that spot. That way you can make the best Star Wars that you can.
Right.
And then
Right.
I promise you, some people aren't going to like it. Just like
Yep.
everything, I could pull out anything from Revenge of the Sith. That's my favorite movie. I could pull anything out from that and be like, this is kind of weird, but it's fine, because I really can't think of a perfect movie. There's no perfect movie in my opinion. There can't be, because not everyone likes everything, because if we all did, that would suck. And I talked to Andy about that too. We actually had a part in one of the episodes before he had went on his little hiatus, was that it would really suck in this world if we all liked everything.
Yeah, we'd be living in some like Pleasantville, like equilibrium kind of world,
Yeah,
and
it's
just like
no.
going through it. And it would suck if like there's no art without these kind of critiques and criticisms. But
Exactly.
there are ways to critique and to view art that aren't like, well, if you don't like this painting, then you're not a real fan of paintings, right? There's just it all just comes down to the way we're taught to communicate these things, I think. And so that's, yeah, exactly what you're saying.
It's
That's
weird.
where things get weird and tricky and kind of gross sometimes.
Yeah. That's what it was funny you brought up painting, because I was thinking, like if someone like looked at the Mona Lisa and was like, I could have drawn her eyes better. And it's like, yes, it's the same thing. It's literally the same
That is
thing.
exactly the example I used to Royce. I don't think it was for an episode, but we were just talking about it. That's the exact example. Like if the Mona Lisa were painted today, someone would walk up and be like, "I could paint her better," and then go and be
Yeah.
like
And it's
leaving negative reviews on Leonardo da Vinci's YouTube channel.
and I bet he'll roll over and just be so pissed off at everyone. Oh
Yeah.
well. But yeah. Okay, man, let's get into the Acolyte. Over the last week or so, asking you to come on the channel, which thank you again for joining me.
Absolutely.
I just think it's really weird, the things that we've sent back and forth. I have some people on my Instagram and some subscribers of mine that are even like, I didn't enjoy the Acolyte, but I liked this of it. And I respect that 100%, because that's honest, that's
100%.
real. Um, but I've also have some followers and some subscribers who are like, man, how could you remotely even like the character of, Soul or Jecki or Yord? Like I remember the one of the first reaction videos I did for episode 1 and 2 after that drop was, I was like, man, I like Yord. I know he had a shirt off for no reason, whatever, but I really like this dude. He's really cool. I feel like just how we blended in, and even in the trailer, seeing someone with a yellow lightsaber in live action besides Rey, I was like, dude, this is badass. I want more
Yeah.
of this. But they're just I was having people saying, dude, are you kidding me? Yord, like you're stupid. And it's like, bro, what is Yord the new Riva? And what's wrong with Riva? She didn't ask for none of this. But
100%.
that's kind of what we're going into, like, and I want to get on recording what your thoughts of Amandla Stenberg and everything that she's going through, especially right now. And
Oh,
it's so weird because she has the diss track that happened to just come out before the Acolyte, which is kind of weird how everyone's like, oh, how is she going to drop a diss track during the Acolyte? And it's like, guys, this is a whole different thing. This is things that she's dealt with before. And even before this the recording here, we were talking about how it's very weird how people want to listen to what people are going through physically or mentally, but then being like, well, I go through the same thing, or I've been like that before. You just got to ignore it. Or who's saying that? Like, prove to me someone saying that to you. And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
wow. Just that reaction right there just tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about this diss track thing. I don't know what was this? Did it come out before the Acolyte?
So there is Amandla Stenberg created a video, and it was she like made a song basically, and then had a like a one shot video take of it. So it's like a one shot music video, basically her talking about things from being woke, or the biggest, and she's basically just singing and rapping about what she's going through, what she's been through. But people are like, oh, she made a diss track towards us Star Wars fans because we don't like her shitty show, or all of these lesbian witches. Like, she made a diss track, how dare her? But that's the thing, is it's from stuff that she has been through before. And even at the same time, if she was making a diss track to Star Wars fans, some Star Wars fans deserve it, and the ones that are mad, it speaks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check this out after the show. But I can tell you that I will be on Amandla's side with this. I also think that if you feel attacked by someone calling out racists and bigots, then you
Yeah,
might be part of the problem.
yeah,
I think like there's no reason. Maybe this explains some of the comments I've seen on some of my stuff as well, with her like people saying that she like attacked white, verbally attacked white men and stuff like that.
mm,
And it's like, she's a
that
woman
might
of
have been it.
color. Like, she's been through stuff. She's been put through stuff by these people. And so she has the right to speak out about it. And we should encourage her to speak out about it. And we should maybe listen and acknowledge it and try to change those things that she's
Right.
talking about. I watched her story last week on Instagram talking about how they were attacked about the show before the show came out, which I
Hmm.
mean, we all saw on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, but the cast and crew was like, getting hate from, I shouldn't say attack. No physical attacks as far as we know, but like verbal and internet hate towards them and their person and their character and the show. And so that was before anyone had like any idea of what the show was really going to be.
Right.
And so it's I mean, it's extremely, extremely, extremely heartbreaking. It's extremely upsetting. It's so, so upsetting to see her and people, and others like her say this stuff and then automatically have some, you know, white man or someone that comes out and says, I don't know, I don't know if what you're saying is true, or maybe you're overreacting. It's that we can't learn, that we haven't learned to not do that, or to like maybe use it to think about things differently or change some things. It's mind boggling to me, and it
Yeah.
keeps happening. It just keeps happening. It's happening everywhere. And this is where it gets tricky for me to continue to talk about Star Wars, because sometimes I feel it's very silly to like bring bring Star Wars to this conversation. But on the other hand, this is what it means to have this stuff systemically in the system. Like,
Oh yeah.
this is happening everywhere, and therefore it is happening in Star Wars, and it happened with Amandla, and it happened with uh, Kelly Marie Tran, and it happened with Riva, and it happened with Ahmed Best, and
Yeah.
the list goes on and on, and we just can't like we can't take the bigotry out of these conversations, and that is what ends up leading to all of this. Like, it's it I just don't know. I just don't know what to say. And this is part of my wanting to like really start to figure out how to speak out about this show, come on and do shows like this. Like, I think like staying silent for me, it, I know how this is going to sound, but the Acolyte is kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back with this. And I've been thinking a lot about this since all of this has been going down with the Acolyte. And since we, Krypton to Alderaan, two white guys talking about Star Wars is getting, hate comments. I can't imagine what like creators of color and women and, queer creators and creators in the LGBTQ community are getting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't even fathom what they must be like dealing with in their like DMs and comment section. So, it's, I guess, back to your original question about Amandla specifically, is I love her. I like her a lot. And it's really heartbreaking to see this. And she really loved making this show. And it's really, really just, I mean, we could all just practice a little bit more empathy and trying to understand. I mean, we're never going to I'm never going to, oops, rookie mistake. I hit the mic. I'm never going to understand what it's like to be in Amandla's shoes, but listening and trying to make changes based off of what she is saying because she's experiencing it is like the most important thing. And also letting her know that we hear her and that we loved the work that she put in, which I really did. I say we, I mean me. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I really loved the work that she put in. No one's ever going to be able to convince me that she did a bad job at acting in the show. No one's ever going to be able to convince me that her character was just stone and she didn't know what she was doing and just stood around and didn't emote and all of these other things that people just jump on for, in my opinion, no reason. No one's ever going to be able to convince me of any of those things. But I also think don't feed the trolls is something I've been thinking about so much lately. And we started this conversation saying, well, bad comments we've gotten, I've deleted some, blah, blah, blah. And I think there is a line here because I'm not going to get in an argument in the comment section with one of these, like with someone being hateful and bigoted, but I also don't want to be quiet. The trolls don't worry about feeding me. So there's got to be a line somewhere where I can be just as loud as these people. They're the loudest. That's part of the problem. Like it's all I see. So I'm trying to figure out how I can use what I have to be loud and to combat this stuff and to let Leslie Headland, Amandla, and the rest of the cast know that I loved their show and I would love to see a season 2. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be sad, but okay. But it was very special to me. And I think it was very special to a lot of other people. Unfortunately, it got drowned out by the loudness of all of this hateful stuff.
Yeah. And that's what's so weird too. It's, and I'm glad that you really, really feel that way about the Acolyte because, I think at the end of the season, I gave it a solid 7 out of 10. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great, but it was good, and I feel like if you get a C on a math test, like you get a 72%, that's good, dude. You passed. But, it's weird because, Tuesday nights when it came out, it was just like Ahsoka. It came out at, 8 p.m. instead of 2 in the morning, which is the worst. But at the same time, it's fine. We're Star Wars fans. Some of us stay up and watch them, like myself. And then some of us, wake up the next day, watch it. But like the Acolyte on Tuesdays, man, I had time with the family watching a new Star Wars project. And, at first it seemed like we were all kind of like, okay, this is really good, and then it kind of goes down a little bit. We go back, to episode 3 and we're seeing why Osha and Mayer of this significance. And we see them as children and we get more backstory, which I'm a sucker for backstory. Give me Chewbacca backstory. Give me an R2-D2 backstory. I want more, So I love that. And then episode 4, it's really slow. but then at the end, it's like a horror movie. You know,
Yes.
Kymir's floating down and
Yes.
it pushes 10 Jedi back. You know, like who's capable of such things? But
Mm-hmm.
in episode 5, you know, one of the most beautiful episodes. I feel like episode 5s in live action Star Wars series are always the best. You know, Shadow Warrior
Oh, yeah.
and Ahsoka, you know, like just great, just greatness. But
Yep.
you know, and just the way we finally go back and see what happened, why the Jedi are being so, you know, suspicious. And you know, Soul, what did he do? You know,
Right.
what did Torben do? What did Kelnaka do? We see it all, you know, and then the way it wraps up, you know, it's like a murder mystery that was just had a blanket put over it and was just, you know, burned, no pun intended. But and it's just all of these things are so, it was such a good time. I enjoyed it. And it's so weird how, you know, kind of going back to those first few videos that I would post on YouTube, if it even entailed the Acolyte, I would get thumbs down. You know, I had one video that got 30 likes, but it had 60 thumbs down. I was like, God damn, what did I make that bad of a video? But it's
That's
just
what it's
like,
been.
and it's weird. I'm like, man, what's going on? Like I said, I like you know, Kelnaka. I think that's cool. We have a Wookiee Jedi. I like seeing, you know, yellow lightsabers, but it's bad writing. It's not good. You're a shill if you like it. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's like, why can't, let's all relax. It's entertainment. But then you
Yeah.
get yelled at for saying, guys, let's go back. It's just entertainment. Let's calm down just a
Yeah.
little bit. And but then you're not a Star Wars fan if you think it's just entertainment. I don't
Right.
know, man. I don't know.
Which, yeah. I mean, the bad writing thing. I love lore as well. You can't see it behind me; they're a little bit blurred out, but that's all my Star Wars books and High Republic books back there because I really love the High Republic, and so I was already set up to be super excited about this show. So I love lore. I mean, you know, again, not a perfect show. Show me where the writing was really bad. Like, it's another thing that I cannot accept as, you know, criticism. If that's your opinion, fine. It's certainly not fact anywhere. And in my opinion, the writing was not bad. And then all the stuff with like the dialogue so bad and core. It's like that's what Star Wars is. Star Wars is corny, weird dialogue that the actors don't even want to say sometimes. To
Have you
George
seen A
Lucas,
New Hope?
like,
Have you seen A New
yeah,
Hope?
George Lucas, like famously maybe like not awesome at dialogue or like directing emotions, and that's what this show got like criticized for. And I don't mean to like say that bluntly. It's just like that's what the prequels got criticized for, and that was the most George Lucas Star Wars that there was.
Right.
So, and again, characters like literal actors not wanting to say the lines that George Lucas was writing for them. So this has always inherently been part of Star Wars, and of course Star Wars is growing and changing and we love to see it. But it's just it, to your point, it doesn't make it a 2 out of 10 in my, you like, I could never see that being the case. It doesn't bring it down to the level of like having a 14% on Rotten Tomato, which is a whole other like this like rating and ranking system on stuff like Rotten Tomato is a whole other issue. But yeah,
Right.
I just like couldn't ever get behind any of those arguments, which is why I didn't want to talk about those points on the show when we were talking about the episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Since you do have some other notes, what are some other key points that you wanted to bring up? Because I mean, there are a lot of things that we could, you know, keep branching off and talking about, but also on the highway we're going on. What do you what else do you have?
There's so much here, man. There's just stuff about, you know, I I I think what I really wanted to get across was that I really really enjoyed the Acolyte. And if people, you know, fans and subscribers to your show are listening and they also really enjoyed it, great. Good for you. Don't let anyone like tell you that you shouldn't or can't or that it doesn't make you a Star Wars fan, because you're a great Star Wars fan, better than most. And yeah, well, it was very special to me. It was a very special show to me. And we got deep, rich lore that I loved, and it had the potential to be such a rich vein. And Chimere / the Stranger is one of the greatest, is one of my favorite Star Wars villains, I guess I should say. He just the mystery surrounding him, the just everything about him, his motives, the little mystery. Oh, maybe he was once a Jedi kind of thing. The helmet's cool. The cortosis is so cool. If you can watch that like fight with the Jedi and not be like, damn, this is some great Star Wars, then I don't know. Maybe try Lord of the Rings. Just so cool helmet, cool lightsaber. I mean, there was just so many times where I just wanted to like sit on my podcast and be like, that was really cool. That was dope.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that it did a really good job of filling in a time frame that we don't know a lot about, setting up a mystery, setting up character motivations that I really understood and could get behind, setting up the Jedi in not the best light, again, leading into the prequel era Jedi that we shouldn't really like or trust or anything like that.
Yeah.
And a really super compelling villain and a literal seduction to the dark side, and like just so much stuff we've never seen before that I think was done very, very well. So I guess in conclusion about that, I just really loved the show and would love to see more someday. I mean, it is my favorite live action Star Wars show. And because it fits well into like it ticks a lot of boxes of what makes Star Wars special to me. So it's pretty close up there with Andor for me, I would say. I should say Andor's pretty close to The Acolyte.
Yeah.
The Acolyte's more my kind of Star Wars than Andor, but I also really enjoyed Andor. So, but yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing for me to say at this point after ranting so much about kind of the state of things, which is just really, really sad to see. I was so bummed when the season ended before they even announced that it wasn't coming back, just because of the amount of like, just the amount of bad stuff and hate and toxicity that was just pervasive. And like you said, we're getting the like 30% likes to dislike ratio on our episodes on YouTube, which is like, I like to think I have pretty thick skin when it comes to stuff like this, but it is a bummer to see those like so many more people hit the thumbs down than the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Right. It's super disheartening to see that. And like, it's disheartening as the person putting a lot of work and effort and emotional investment into making the thing, but then it's also disheartening to see that coming from the fandom of the thing that we're all supposed to love together, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I find from it, because it's like, you know, the Acolyte to me, like I said, it was really good, but at the same time, it's like these characters we get, you know, like I love Squid Games, you know, season 1. I'm excited to see season 2, but like, you know, Lee Jung Jae, like how cool is that he was able to learn more English to do this role because they wanted him to do this role. And you know,
and he was incredible. And he was incredible.
I was trying to find a way to even like remotely just say how great of a job he did, because it's and the way he was able to use his English and his character, you were like, dude, I don't like you, but I do like you. Like, that's crazy for a Korean actor to come to America and understand, you know, us American fans, even just for instance, saying like, wow, that acting is phenomenal. Like, I don't like this dude, you know?
Right.
And it's just the simple things, just language barrier, even. You know, Daphne King did a great job. Like, I've seen a lot of people calling her like the space David Bowie. I love it. You know, I love everything about that. And I think the way she died was one of the best deaths in all of Star Wars. I will say, I was calling it on my channel. I was calling it a 3-piece combo with a biscuit. Like the way it snaps the lightsaber and just literally got hole punched. Like, That is insane. Like, who could
Yep.
think of that? You know, and it's I, you know, and I've seen memes too, which it's all funny. Memes are memes. They're funny for a reason. But
Sure.
I love how, you know, some people would be like, "Oh, I bet she survives," you know. She got stabbed. She's going to survive. You know, it's just like, yeah, I get it. I get it. That's funny. But I'm glad some people are able to have fun with it. And these are
Sure.
people that didn't even enjoy the show, but loved the fight sequence. And
Yeah.
I I loved everything about it. You know, the actors did a great job. But my main point though is it was season 1. It
Yeah.
was the quote unquote pilot season.
Right.
Who I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan. I in season 1 when you watch it, you're like, "Yo, the synopsis is about a science teacher who gets cancer, makes meth, and then, you know, what's going on." Season 1 is just the upstart. They didn't know if they were getting a season 2, but I'll sure tell you by season 2 and 3, he's making meth at a very high empire standard. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, okay." So when you go back to season 1, you're like, "Okay, this is just, you know, tinkering into the story." But hey, it got renewed for a season 2, and look where season 2 to season 6 or season 5 went. Like, just those 3 4 seasons alone, you're like, "Oh, okay, the season 1 was just the intro." Imagine
Yeah.
what the Acolyte could have been. We got live action Plagueis, we get Yoda, and I love how they kind of give him the original trilogy look, but with like a puppet look,
Yeah.
you know, instead of the CGI, which I love the CGI. It was good, but it's just like, guys,
Yeah.
settle the fuck down, man. You know, like, it's crazy how we want to get upset when there's so much rich things we can pull from this and be like, wow, that was dope. You know, the way Chimera has a lightsaber that can break in half and be two, the cortosis, like you brought up, we've never seen that in live action before. And I don't read books. The only Star Wars book that I've even dipped my nose into is Dark Disciple, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
because of Quinlan Voss himself. But you know, I like this because I can talk to people who are high and knowing about the High Republic, know a lot about it. And those were some of the fans that were the happiest with the Acolyte because they get characters like Vernister Rowe. They get to see, you know, the way she uses her, you know, the Force differently, like when she's in hyperspace, if I'm thinking right, and
Yeah.
showing, you know, it's just all of that cool things that I don't even know about. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. But I
Yep.
could only imagine, you know, someone like you or other people who are like, man, you know, I really love the books and they're actually calling to this. This is the fandom I really, really like to be a part of. Like, that's cool. That's great. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's just weird how people really just overreact and just
Yeah.
let their feelings just, and it's like, are we that miserable to
Yeah.
just be so mad about a TV series? I don't know, dude.
It's the
I'll
path.
never have an answer.
It's a path to the dark side. And to be clear, the High Republic book and comic books have been taking hate since 2019, since they started, and everyone's saying it's not successful. Disney's losing so much money. Like, everyone has a background into Disney's books and stuff like that, which is
Yeah,
just another nonsense comment to read. Listen, they have been making Star Wars: The High Republic in book, audio drama, comic book format, and now live action television since 2019 or 2018. I think it's doing fine. Otherwise, they would not be investing in it. To
right.
go and say, like, season one didn't pay off, so they shouldn't make a season two, and who's even watching this and all that stuff. I don't. It's very hard for me to believe that any of these are like actual arguments, and it's not just stuff that is being read or taken from somewhere else. I know that's very like diminishing to say, but again, I'm trying to be more loud about this and maybe trying to think about it more. How, like, in the age of streaming and streaming television, this stuff does not work this way anymore. See, canceling or not renewing a show 3 weeks after the final episode drops on Disney Plus on a streaming service blows my mind. Like,
It is crazy.
well, they didn't make up their $185 million. Where, when, where, what was the plan to make that money up? There's no like value added opportunity here from a marketing, to use some marketing lingo. There's no merch. There's no like, they bundled the Mandalorian season 1 with Disney Plus to get people to sign up. It's not like the Acolyte is pushing people to sign up for Disney Plus. It's just not thought about the same way as traditional television. So
Right.
yeah, the fact that it's canceled immediately blows my mind. And how many shows, like you mentioned Breaking Bad, how many shows over the years have you either said this or heard this from someone? Oh, that's a great show. You just got to get through season 1, or you can skip season. Like, it's every show. It's every single show. Every time I recommend a show, I'm like, nah, there's some messy stuff in season. Good Clone Wars. I say it all the time with Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like, all right, there's some stuff in season 1. You just gotta kind of like keep your head down and power through. But yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's a non-argument. A, because I really like season 1, and B, because you use season 1 to get the feedback, make adjustments, iterate, and maybe do season 2 for less money, you know? So I don't really understand the arguments. I guess that's the way I should say it.
Yeah, I could never, ever in a million years begin to understand the the review bombing. Like, how are you going to say something's not good before you even see it? But
Yeah.
if you tell me, like, look, I didn't like this because of this and this reason, and it's like like it's your actual feeling and like your opinion, I'm not going to be mad at that, because there's people who tell me Revenge of the Sith isn't their favorite film in the Star Wars franchise, and that's okay. I'm not going to be like, well, you're not a Star Wars fan, because that's what
Right, exactly.
that's what it's always happens to come down to. And it's just like, man, like I used to not like Ahsoka Tano at first. I was like, dude, no way, because this chick right here is Anakin's Padawan, but Anakin wasn't granted the rank of master in, you know, Revenge of the Sith, so that doesn't make sense, you know, because he was a master, you know.
You're like, this is BS.
Yeah, so over time, like 2019, I really got back into Star Wars. So like I would just, you know, I saw Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and I was like, okay. And then like I got Last Jedi at Redbox in like 2018 to like watch it again after it's been a while. And then 2019, I go see The Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, dude, hold on. And then there's this Mandalorian TV show, and I'm like, dude, Boba Fett, like this is gonna be, you know, the showing, you know, what Django was a part of once upon a time, and it was just about a Mandalorian, you know, as a bounty hunter. So it's the best of both worlds. So then I'm, you know, all back into Star Wars. So then I watched the Clone Wars again, and I'm like, wow. And that was also when season 7 came out, and the entire way showing how Ahsoka Tano could feel everything that was going through Order 66. Like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I wish my camera was good to pick this up, but the way it adds so much more weight to Revenge of the Sith has me turning my head like, what is going on? This is insane. So I'm like, you know what? I like Ahsoka Tano. This is great. So just watching the Clone Wars again, and like I always say, you know, just let it marinate, let it sit over time, revisit it, and see what you can bring up this time. The second time I watched Clone Wars, I'm like, cool. I'm on board with Ahsoka Tano. I'm riding the train. And then she gets her own series, and it's one of my favorite live action series. You know, it would be really hard for me to rank the live action series, but it's so rich, and it's like this could be the Acolyte, but some people would much rather be like, you know what, if you like that show, you're not a Star Wars fan, and it's just horrible writing, breaks canon, and it's like, all right, man, whatever. I really don't have time for it right now. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm adopting. Well, I think like at no point did it break canon whatsoever. That's just not. That's factually inaccurate. Second of all, I'm losing, like I think, like I said before, I'm losing my like when they go low, we go high thing where I'm just gonna start being like, actually, you're not a real Star Wars fan. If you come to me and tell me that it's bad and it's woke and it's like if you like that, how could you possibly like this? You're an idiot. Then, and you're like, you're not a real Star Wars fan. I'm gonna be like, actually, you're not a real Star Wars fan. How about that? Like, I'm just like, well, all I do is sit quietly by and watch these comments roll in, and I think me personally, in order to combat this, need to start being like, actually, I am, and you're not. I think that's where I got to go with it.
Yep. It's also funny too how people are like, they could have just gone the same route the Mandalorian did and take notes from Ahsoka with the live action. Leslie Headland, she deserves to go over here, do this and that, bad things. And I'm canceling my Disney Plus subscription. And it's like, well, good luck watching the Mandalorian and Rogue One and Return of the Jedi again, unless you bought it
Andor
or have it
season 2.
Yeah, like good luck, man. Yeah. I'm sorry. I wish the best for you.
Also good, because then you won't have any reason to come back into my comments or anyone else's comments if you cancel. Please cancel your Disney Plus subscription.
Right.
Please.
The weirdest thing too, I always thought, just to add, was how people would, comment on a video and be like, this show sucks. And it's like, okay, I don't know if I hit the algorithm just right and happen to make it to your feed, but why are you looking up the Acolyte videos?
Right.
Like what is going on?
Yeah. No, they love searching that stuff out. I do want to say, I don't know if we're like getting to the end of wrapping up here, but I do want to mention one more positive thing. When you were talking about like the Clone Wars and everything Ahsoka was going through and leading into Revenge of the Sith, and how that was like making you feel, and how that is so much of what it means to be a fan of a thing and to be a fan of Star Wars, because we have those really strong, like nostalgically emotional connections to this thing. So Revenge of the Sith is your favorite movie. So when you see season 7 and the end of season 7, when Order 66 is going down and Ahsoka is feeling it, like the fact that I'm getting goosebumps now and you got goosebumps before means that we are great Star Wars fans, and that feeling is what I love about Star Wars. Not the feeling of being a great fan, even though I think I am, but the feeling that Star Wars gives me in those moments. Like I also got so many of them in the Acolyte. It's like you were saying with Vernestra, who we only knew as a teenager in the books, but seeing what she's going through, having the like allusions to her like dealing with something in hyperspace. How's your stomach? It's my head, actually, and I'm fine. I know what that's about. And so those little connections make me feel like that emotional connection that I love feeling about that. Like, again, I think the way I describe it is like nostalgically emotional, right? It makes us think of what we love about this property. And that is just so special. That is what makes fandom special. And that's really what I think fandom is, having those reactions to the thing and having the connection with another fan of like, you got goosebumps when you were talking about it, and that I got goose, and we have that because we love this thing so much. I think that's just really important stuff to I think that's just really important stuff to have happen, and I love that it happens. But I also think it's really important to talk about, because we never talk about that. I get goosebumps on the Krypton To Alderaan all the time as we're talking about Star Wars stuff that I love, and we never like have that discussion. But I also think like this is what we actually feel when we are talking about these things, and I think that's like, I just think that's a super, super great and important connection to make to Star Wars.
You're supposed to feel that way, and that's like this. I can almost promise you, without even knowing the reason why you guys started your channel, your podcast, but I almost 100% guarantee that it's because you simply love Star Wars. That's the whole point. That's the whole point on why any of us do this, or any of us that should do it. I used to look up to the bigger Star Wars YouTubers, and like, hats off to all of them, because that's why I'm trying to do my thing now. It's, and doing everything with the Legos and the Funkos and stuff. It's like, man, we spend money on these things, I
Yeah.
want to show it off a little bit. But it's weird. I even caught myself talking with my dad about the UCS Jabba sail barge that's supposed to come out next month with Lego, and he couldn't really remember exactly what the sail barge was, if it was the barge or the skiff. So I pulled up a video on YouTube of Return of the Jedi, and I was like, it's this. And it's just the moment where they show the banthas in the Dune Sea, and then you see the two skiffs and the sail barge coming down, and you can hear Max Rebo's band playing. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, just seeing that little 30-second video gave me just the hairs on my neck, rose. My arms got goosebumps. It's just crazy how it just takes you back. And like, that's all this stuff is, man. It's just talking about the things we enjoy. I
Yep.
feel like that should get more traction than saying, man, Return of the Jedi sucks. The Last
Yeah.
Jedi sucks. And it's weird but that's just how it works. The things that are negatively received always get bigger flowers. So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to stay true. I'm going to always talk about what I like instead of, what I
Yeah.
don't. But are there things are there going to be videos where I'm like, I wasn't really with this, it is, I couldn't even really grasp with the first few episodes. I couldn't understand May and Osha's dynamic as sisters or as one, or the power of two. I couldn't understand it. But that doesn't take me away from the show just because I don't
Right.
understand it. And I'm not going to make a video saying this is dumb, because that's dumb.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I agree. Yeah. I think maybe leaving on a high note and just saying this, like, I would love to talk about the Acolyte more. We definitely, like, having this conversation ended up being more about, the state of things, but I really, really liked the show, and I really want to be open and accepting to whatever Star Wars is becoming. And Star Wars is becoming so many different things. And I think instead of trying to keep it in this box, we need to be okay with that box kind of opening up, or at least expanding, maybe not like going completely outside the box. Even though
Right.
that's what Andor did, really, if you think, like, everyone's favorite show is kind of like the least Star Wars show. But between all of the things that are coming out, and between all of the people who are working on Star Wars because it is special to them, and it is, it's never going to remain what it was in 1977. And I think that that's a good thing. Like you're saying, people growing up and seeing Harrison Ford grow with them, we're growing up and seeing Star Wars grow and grow beyond. We are what Star Wars grows beyond, kind of. Like, it's not for us, but if we can just have a moment in it and love it, then I think that that's great. And you don't have to love everything, but that just, like, let other people love it. And that's where that's where I genuinely hope that we can get to, especially with stuff like the, New Jedi Order and stuff like that coming out, that I'm just like, it sucks to already be primed for seeing all the hate. But yeah, I think starting to take the next steps to, like, allowing Star Wars to be what it is and allowing people to like Star Wars, even if you don't like Star Wars or what you don't like about Star Wars, is hopefully we can get there. I have to have hope for that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I'm hoping for too, man. It's just, it gives us more things to talk about. It gives us, and something new, as always. If who knows, if George never sold Star Wars, we would just still have episode 1 through 6,
Right.
and it's just weird what we want and what we don't like. And when I say we, I'm trying to think of the entire range of Star Wars fans. There's casuals, there's diehards, and it doesn't matter what rank you're in. If there are ranks, we're all fans of the same thing. So that's kind of how I see it. But man, I think we had a really good talk, especially for the first time face to face, screen to screen talking. I feel like, if we were to get this going again, we could really kind of dive deep into the things that we like about the Acolyte. But of course, when you think of the Acolyte, you think of the things that are going on with it right now. And that, unfortunately, those are some of the things that we discussed for the, the actors, the cast, the crew, the directors, and even other fans. It's not just the people who actually did it, it's the ones that are on their side as well that are getting hate. So, and it is what it is. But man, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. If you could tell everyone who's made it this far what Joey represents and what Krypton to Alderaan is all about.
Ooh, yeah, what I represent. Man, so many things. I really, in terms of this, I am just a huge Star Wars fan, and I just love when people love Star Wars. And Krypton to Alderaan is very much my baby, and I've been very much trying to adopt the same brand with that. Generous takes, just generous, fair takes. And sometimes we don't like stuff, but we discuss why, right? It's all about being generous and critiquing the art, and trying not to get bogged down when people don't like what we have to say. But that's really what we try to do there, and I think it's resonating with some, and hopefully it'll continue to resonate with more. And so yeah, if you liked what I had to say here today, you can go and find Krypton to Alderaan on YouTube, and let me know what you think of what we have to say there.
Absolutely. Yeah, give them a follow on Instagram too.
And on Instagram. Yes, please. That would be great. And yeah, thanks so much. This was a great conversation. It got pretty deep, but yeah, really enjoyed talking with you. And this was, great vibes for the first face-to-face here. But I would love to come back and talk more about what I actually loved about the Acolyte and specifics and stuff. Always happy to nerd out about the Acolyte. That's for sure.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. But yeah, I appreciate it. And for sure, man, once we get more news, I feel like there's not enough of the Acolyte that makes it over yet. I feel like there's always going to be some new things that come out with the Acolyte. So, yeah. I mean, we're going to definitely have some things to talk about in the future, but yeah, thank you for coming on again, Joey. I appreciate everything. And to everyone watching, may the force be with you. Clan Brandalorian, I'm out.